Hello survivors and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video, and in this video we are going to be taking a first look at Gold Mythic Anthony Adams, who is going to be coming to RTS on the Advanced Token Wheel. Now visually we've never had an Anthony Adams before, but he does look pretty cool. As you can see, I think it's going to be in association with the 4th of July Independence Day in America. As you can see, a lot of American stuff going on in the flags and the bandanas and stuff like that. Looks really cool if you see it on the right hand side. He has got a lot of weaponry on him. He is going to be alert because he's holding a pistol as the main weapon, but he has got that rifle just in case. And as you can see on the left hand side, the rifle showcased very nicely here. But he's kind of standing on a little hill with the flag in the background. Kind of looks very American for sure. If we look at the stats, at level 1600, limit break 3, he has got a measly 11,217 attack, but a big 40,194 defense and 42,064 HP. He is going to be the alert character, like I said. He is holding a pistol. He has got an attached weapon as his actual visuals, but he has not got an attached weapon on the actual character. He is going to be of the support role. He is, of course, going to be a Gold Mythic character. And lastly, he is going to be joining the Day 1 Allegiance. And I'm not actually sure if he's like part of the American history, kind of like Betsy Ross, I was told was part of that. If he is, let me know down in the comments. Now, the first thing we are going to be checking out on Anthony Adams is the Adrenaline Rush, and it is called Battle Ready. It has got a recharge rate of 75. All teammates get Guardian Shield. This fighter recovers from all penalties and heals for 75% of their max HP for 2 turns. 2 other teammates get 150% attack and 150% defense for 2 turns. So obviously the recharge rate is massive, but if you look at his specialist skill, that's where it does make a little bit of sense. This character is going to be a human shield, so you would not necessarily want them to Adrenaline Rush too often. When the Adrenaline Rush does go off though, he will still be protecting his entire team with Guardian Shield. So I really like that potential in terms of like not shielding his team, but shielding his team. It's quite a nice idea. Recovering from all penalties is nice. That is only going to be very particular penalties. Obviously, stun, confuse, and impair means he wouldn't be able to do his Adrenaline Rush in the first place. So it's only going to be certain penalties, but it'll be things like damage over time would be very good too. The heal for the next 2 turns is okay. He won't have a good enough turnaround to have that heal back up in time because his Adrenaline Rush is quite slow. He's not going to be doing basic attacks to get extra AP. He's going to be purely relying on the signature move pretty much. The boost to attack and defense is interesting. Defense mainly obviously is great because he is more of a defense team character, but he's going to give a big boost to attack too. And that could be problematic in terms of dogpiling. Obviously, the defense dogpiles quite a lot. There is a character that's just going to get annihilated on your attack team. If someone's got 150% attack, and even a basic attack will do a lot of damage to an attack team character just because they're quite weak defensively, so they could get absolutely destroyed. But he could potentially have some usability on attack teams because, you know, human shields on attack isn't necessarily impossible to use. And don't forget, because he's alert, he could have a stun on defense weapon, so you could cheese the stun on defense on an attack team and force people to attack him. But a lot of defense teams have first turn signature moves, so they would not necessarily have to do that. You'd have to have like maybe days in the team to try and take full advantage of that. But it's just some potential. Let's actually just check this out. Okay, so here we are on the attack team, and I did manage to get him 75 AP on turn 1. It's not very easy, but it is not too bad when you've got Glenn and Laura. We are just going to do his Adrenaline Rush. It doesn't do too much targeted stuff, so you don't have to target a specific enemy. You'll just do the Adrenaline Rush, and he will give Guardian Shields to himself and everybody else. And obviously, you can see 2 characters did get a big boost. We've got 150% defense boost on Laura and on Clem. And Laura obviously has it stacked with the fact that she defended because I commanded Anthony Adams. And then we have the attack on top. Like I say, maybe some potential usability on attack teams. Definitely going to be fine for defense teams. The Guardian Shields is a really nice touch. Like I say, when someone does their Adrenaline Rush as a human shield, you miss out on the protection that they give your team by actually having a human shield available. But this time around, it's going to be absolutely fine. So, yeah, I like that quite a lot. Now jumping into the upgrades on Anthony Adams' Adrenaline Rush, and you can see at grade 3 it gets an upgrade where this fighter recovers from all penalties. We didn't see that in the clip before. He didn't have any negative status effect, but if he had a million negative status effects. He'll be removing all the ones he potentially could, as long as he could actually Adrenaline Rush. And then at grade 5, he gets plus 100% attack and 100% defense on that buff. So I guess initially it starts off at 50% attack and 50% defense. This is only 2 copies, and that'll get boosted up to max. And then in Limit Break 2, it gets an upgrade where all teammates get a Guardian Shield. And that's the bit that I see as being the biggest part of this, honestly, when it comes to, you know, every character's going to have an Adrenaline Rush, a shield included. If the fight goes on long enough that they do that Adrenaline Rush, sometimes, like I said, it can be problematic in terms of that's the opening that the enemy team can have to easily take out your team. Guardian Shields are a problem. There's no counter to Guardian Shields. There is a counter to, you know, Human Shields, but Guardian Shields there is not. You have to remove them to be able to attack the enemy behind it. There's no way to stop Guardian Shields from being a problem at the moment, and it never has been. There potentially could be in the future, you never know, that could always come out, but Guardian Shields are very, very effective. They stop effects as well if you have effects based on attack. So if, for instance, if it's a signature move or a rush that does damage and also lays down an effect, that effect doesn't land because it hits the Guardian Shield. So it's actually really nice. So at least that's the way it's meant to work. Sometimes the game has some issues lately. We'll see if that's going to be the case in the future. But like I say, the Adrenaline Rush is okay. The Guardian Shields is the big one. It's nice that he heals, cleanse, buffs. It's interesting. It's not like super powerful, but it allows him to protect his team still, even though his specialist skill will not. Now, the next part of Anthony Adams' kit that we'll check out will be that signature move, and it is called Scrappy Tactics. It has got an initial cooldown of turn 1, cooldown of 2 turns, number of uses unlimited. This fighter and 2 teammates recover from all penalties and get elusive for the rest of combat. This fighter gets 100% defense, which increases by 50% each turn for the rest of combat. Now, this is obviously a little interesting that, you know, the Human Shield will not Human Shield off of turn 1, but it will fully cleanse himself and 2 teammates straight away. So this is going to counter things like infection, that sort of thing, off of like lead skills or early, you know, potential there. And also any early burn and bleed that you can put down, it will counter that too. So for instance, if you're trying to use Akira, he'll cleanse that burn from 2 characters as well as himself. And then elusive for all of those characters for the rest of combat is really powerful. This means they give no AP when attacking people, but also give no AP when being attacked. And that means that only signature moves would gain AP against those characters. Now that could get stolen away. Elusive is a buff that you can steal, but you'd have to obviously use an attack against that character, and that character will not gain AP. This fighter getting defense is interesting. This will stack with the defend that he does on his specialist skill, so that on turn 2 he will defend, and what it will do, it will basically multiply with that. So for instance, he'll have 100% defense off of turn 1, on turn 2 he'll have 150%, and then he will have 50% on top plus 50% of 150%. So he should have 275% defense after turn 2 on a like normal rotation, and I can test that out right now. Okay, so here we are off of turn 1. I'm going to use Anthony Adams' signature move, and you can see he gives himself elusive as well as Glenn and Clem. And you'll see the enemy team maybe will attack, and they actually attacked the one character that didn't have elusive. That's fantastic. But when I do an attack against the enemy, for instance, I'll attack the character in the bottom right hand corner. Just watch their AP not move when they get some damage their way. No AP, and this is going to happen with adrenaline rushes and signature moves. Anyone who's got elusive, that's how it works. Now I can hit the defend action on Anthony Adams, and it is going to be 275% defense. This is how it would work on a defense team. Obviously, now you have to target this character, and he's got a very large amount of defense to reduce incoming damage. Obviously, he could be teamed up with certain characters as well to reduce certain types of damage. So, for instance, if he's on a Regina team and he has the damage reduction weapon, he would take 0 damage from attacks, and he'd only take damage from deal damage and adrenaline rushes and so on and so forth. And the 275% defense would negate the damage that he would take there, which would actually be pretty decent. But that's pretty much how it's going to work when it comes to the signature move and the combination with that specialist skill. And as you might have realized, obviously, when he is shielding the rest of his team, you have to attack him, and he's got elusive. So that is going to be a problem too. Ransack seems to be extremely important against Anthony Adams. It's generally quite important anyway, but very, very important here. At grade 2, you can see there's going to be an upgrade though, where it gets elusive for the rest of combat, nice and early on in the upgrades. At grade 4, he gets another upgrade where defense increases by 50% each turn for the rest of combat. So initially it's just going to be a 100% defense bar, but this is just 1 copy, so nice and easy. At limit break 1, which is 3 copies, plus 2 teammates recover from all penalties and get elusive. So initially it is just going to be him who gets the recover and elusive, but obviously at limit break 1, he will give it to 2 other characters as well. And then at limit break 3, he gets -1 to starting cooldown. Now, this is one of the things like you might not want it to go off on turn 1. You can dictate this to a certain extent. You can say, hey, I will get him to limit break 2 and try and dictate this. You will lose out on a little bit of stats and you'll lose out on one of the passives, but it could be what you think is a better idea just because you want him to human shield off of turn 1. That is completely up to you. I do kind of wish you could potentially like upgrade this part. I know that they kind of moved away from signature move and adrenaline rushes upgrades and it's purely on passives, but they could have like introduced it just for this, like where you have to spend like 1 XP, you know, very small amount of military supplies just to upgrade it, just if you actually want this to occur. Just because having him human shield off of turn 1 can be very, very powerful, especially like I said, if he has a stun and defense weapon. But obviously that's up to you on how you want to actually do things. You could test it out and see which way is more worthwhile. Regardless, turn 1 or turn 2, he's going to be doing that signature move. Is it better to get the elusive early, then human shield afterwards, or is it better to human shield first and then get the elusive afterwards? You have to test it out yourself, but either way, he should be pretty solid. And it could potentially come down to that passive that he would lose out on at limit break 3, at least the second half of it. But yeah, the signature move is quite nice. Elusive is kind of underrated. It makes things a lot harder to actually get the ball rolling for sure. Now, before we get on to the passives, of course, Anthony Adams is an advanced token wheel character, so we will be giving away 10,000 advanced tokens. If you want your chance to win, all you have to do is hit the like button on the video, leave a comment down below, and you will be entered into the giveaway. I'll be doing some live draws, hopefully by next Monday, of some of the previous giveaways, and then obviously Anthony Adams will be drawn in a future live stream. I'm going to be getting back to a bit more of a rhythm on my live streams. It will be a different format. I'm just setting up at the moment, so if you want to enter some of the last 4 or 5 giveaways, you still can, but the live draws of those will hopefully happen very soon. Best of luck if you enter this giveaway though, guys, and now back to the video. Now, checking out Anthony Adams' mythic abilities, these are his passive skills. He is of course going to have cunning. When attacking or being attacked, he is 30% less likely to trigger enemy weapon effects and walker effects. This is obviously really good because he could potentially stop someone from doing like stun on attack, anything like that. Any 3rd slot potential he can actually stop from happening. I think this can even stop ransack. I'm not 100% certain, so that could be really, really nice when it comes to Anthony Adams. And the next one is called Focus Breaker. At the start of each turn, 100% chance to remove focus from 1 random enemy plus 1 enemy if this fighter has a debilitating status effect. So this is of course very nice, especially because he is a human shield. He will obviously be doing 2 of his own turns by the time he does his human shield at LB3, and then he would have removed at least 2 focuses from the enemy team, and potentially more if there are some debilitating status effects. Any debilitating status effect landing on him will obviously be an extra focus removal for the enemy team. You could team him up with other characters that give negatives as well. I think the most recent Yumiko from Warrior Champions did give negatives based on focus. I know her kit changed, so it might have actually been changed out. I can't fully remember, but there definitely are going to be some team ups with Anthony Adams with other characters that give negatives or even remove more focus status effects as well. Now, Anthony Adams' next passive is called Breakthrough. When performing the defend action, 100% chance with equal odds to remove counter damage reduction from either 2 or 3 random enemies. This is obviously very nice if you have him teamed up with characters that potentially have some sort of counter when it comes to like payback or bide, or even, you know, actual reflect mods. So someone like Anthony Adams could wear a reflect mod if you didn't have him in a Regina team, and that would actually work. And then he could potentially be doing quite a lot of reflect damage onto characters with no more counter damage reduction. That would obviously be very, very powerful for sure. The last one is called Counter Confusion. When this fighter receives a debilitating status effect, 100% chance 2 random enemies get confused for 2 turns. This is mental. It's just any debilitating. This includes normalize, anything daze, impair, anything that's going to stop him from using part of his kit. That's how it works. It won't include things like attack down, defense down, or anything like that. But this is really, really powerful, because the only way you can really get around confuse is by having focus. And then he also removes focus based on how many debilitating status effects he has. So he's going to be removing a lot more of your focus on your team if you are debilitating him, and then you're getting more confuses if you're doing that too. So the combination there is crazy. If you don't control him, he's going to have a lot of control with his specialist skill, but if you do, he could potentially be making you nuke yourself. If you've got like heavy damage dealers, you know what it's like. They can just one-shot your own team. It's not fun. So that's actually a really crazy interaction with his own specialist skill there. That's actually, like I say, pretty nuts. Okay, so starting the fight, I will say I have tested this out a little bit, and there are a few things that I have actually noticed. If I do the defend action on all my characters, you'll see, instead of doing his signature move, he will just do his specialist skill once again. And this is because if he hasn't got anyone to cleanse, he won't do his signature move. He will just do his specialist skill, which is obviously pretty good on that case when it comes to like deciding how you want things to go. Obviously, if I did some effects on enemies or him, he would cleanse. So for instance, if I did normalize here, you could see he did actually remove the focus as well. I think Krampus Carol had focus. Two of my actual counter damage reductions did get removed off of Razzo and Titan. But if I was to use like normalize here, I suddenly get confused on one of my enemies. You can see on one of my characters, sorry, should I say, Razzo got confused. And then if I did it on Wang Fa, we get other confusers coming in, Titan, and now Krampus Carol, they're also confused. So now when I do the defend action, he can't actually do his human shield. A, he's normalized, but B, he has actually got someone to cleanse. He will then cleanse, take away the normalize, and obviously give himself the elusive to his teammates. And you can see my team's still confused. In this case, I did hit enemies, but as you know how confuse works, you can hit your own team. If you've got a very heavy damage dealer, it can just wreck you. If they've got splash damage or rampage or any like decap, it can be very, very problematic indeed. So the potential for Anthony Adams to be that single character loop, basically with the whole like, you do any sort of effects on him, it gets the loop going with the confuses and so on and so forth. He's removing focus is very, very high. Just as a solo character, regardless of what team he can go on, he will be problematic, but obviously there'll be some very good teams that he could go on when it comes to taking advantage of things like counter damage reduction removal, and obviously the fact that he can't be controlled by certain characters. So for instance, if you team him up with Regina, because you're not going to have any control role characters, he's going to have less chance of being controlled, so you could see that as a benefit. So he's going to have his specialist skill proc more often. But if you want to take advantage of the fact that he could get controlled, he's got the kit to do that as well. So it's kind of interesting from that side of things. But as an individual character, it seems very powerful. At grade 1, you can see though, he gets the first half of Focus Breaker. At the start of each turn, 50% chance to remove focus from one random enemy, plus one enemy if the fighter has a debilitating status effect. And obviously we would have had focus removed from a lot of characters in that situation if I had a lot of focus. I think I only had one character with focus off of turn 2, because I was laying down a lot of negative status effects onto Anthony Adams. And obviously don't forget the fact that if anyone applies focus, it can just get instantly removed as well. Grade 2, he gets the first half of Cunning. When attacking or being attacked, 15% less likely to trigger enemy weapon effects and walker effects. At grade 3, he gets the second half of Focus Breaker, where it's a 100% chance to remove focus from one random enemy plus one enemy if this fighter has a debilitating status effect at the beginning of each turn. Moving on to grades 4 and 5, you can see at grade 4, he gets the first half of Breakthrough. When performing the defend action, 50% chance with equal odds to remove counter damage reduction from either 2 or 3 random enemies. And at grade 5, he gets Counter Confusion. When this fighter receives a debilitating status effect, 50% chance 2 random enemies get confused for 2 turns. On to the limit breaks, we can see at LB1, Cunning 2 comes in. Now 30% less likely to trigger enemy weapon effects and walker effects when attacking or being attacked. At limit break 2, he gets the second half of Breakthrough, and he'll have now a 100% chance with equal odds to remove counter damage reduction from either 2 or 3 random enemies when performing the defend action. That generally means when he does his specialist skill. And then in limit break 3, he gets the second half of Counter Confusion. When this fighter receives a debilitating status effect, now a 100% chance 2 random enemies get confused for 2 turns. So what I said before when it came to making him limit break 3 to make sure maybe his character doesn't do his actual signature move or not on turn 1, it probably is better to make him limit break 3 because Counter Confusion 2 is very powerful, and obviously the fact that he can cleanse himself, and then obviously other things can happen as well. Don't forget, he will always human shield at the start of the fight, the very first turn, so that's always nice. So if you have got a stun on defense weapon, people will generally have to attack him. I would definitely team him up with characters that have either focus punishment or focus removal, just so that you don't get bypassed so much with Anthony Adams on your team, because focus is very effective against human shields. He's doing it to a certain extent, but things do have to happen. But there are other characters that obviously do punish teams, and you could also use double human shield. There are definitely other human shields that could work. Rosie does punish characters with attack down, which is obviously decent, so then there's just going to be less chance of being nuked. And then there are other characters, like I said, I think Yumiko does some focus removal. I'm not like 100% sure when it actually occurs. She has had like multiple changes to her kit. It's hard to keep up with that one. But when it comes to Anthony Adams, just as a standalone, looks like he could work in quite a number of defense teams, but potentially having very, very good matchups with particular defense leaders and particular other characters as well. But as a standalone kit, his passes really bring things together. I would say his rush and his signature move just like kind of okayish in how they work. His specialist skill is obviously really powerful, but his passives are like extremely powerful, and the fact that he can hold a stun on defense weapon as an alert character is, like I say, extremely powerful on top of that as well. Now, I've been talking about the specialist skill throughout the video, and it is Human Shield. At the start of each wave, while on the defense team, or when performing the defend action, or attacks from human enemies may only target this fighter, and you obviously have to defend to make that actually occur. It's just the defend action kind of standard. Now, if someone had focus, they would be able to bypass this, and this is why I've said focus, removal, or punishment is very important. He has a little bit, but definitely want to team him up with someone who does. Specialist skill, a Human Shield, is generally quite powerful. And this is the first alert shield I think we've had in the Mythic era, which is actually kind of crazy because human shields being alert is extremely powerful just because of the fact they can hold a stun on defense weapon. Now, I know there's been multiple stun on defense weapons out since, like for instance, I think there's a fast one, so even stars can hold one. But this is much easier to come by. It's a much easier weapon to come by, and obviously Anthony Adams can slot in your hand. Most people have a stun on defense alert weapon ready to go, multiple most likely, just because it was one that you could craft in the armory, and it's quite an easy one to come by. And obviously with focus stun, this does mean even if he has got certain debilitating effects like confuse and taunt, he'd still be able to use his signature move to cleanse those, and that will obviously be really, really good too. Now, like I said, Anthony Adams does not have an attached weapon. He does have a weapon on the left-hand side, and I believe that's in like an event right now. I think it's one of the weapons that you can get from going to your events section. I'm not 100% certain. I don't think it's a very easy weapon to come by, or at least it's not a very cheap one to come by, that's for sure. But it is a weapon. I think it does actually work on Anthony Adams because it has got more defensive stats. But when it comes to the weapon you could put in his hands, like I say, you could have your standard kind of focus stun pistol. There's been quite a lot of defensive alert weapons that we've got over, the last couple of years, so it shouldn't be too hard to come by a weapon to put in his hands. Alert isn't that tough when it comes to getting defensive weapons. Tough is tough to get defensive weapons, but alert not so much. So that's pretty standard, pretty easy, and I think most people probably have one in their inventory ready to go. So that is a first look at Anthony Adams, and he doesn't look too bad at all. Like I said, his Adrenaline Rush and signature move is a slow start for sure, and it was relying heavily on that specialist skill actually having some heavy usability, and it does. The passives have really good interaction with the rest of his kit, and how you want it to work when it comes to focus and him kind of punishing people for doing debilitating status effects. He has a lot of control. He's not going to proc weapons too often, so I think stealing buffs away might be tough, and doing any sort of control on him is problematic. And like I say, any team ups he has with focus punishment or focus removal will be really, really powerful for Anthony Adams, and I'm sure people will have some ideas already. Give me your thoughts though on Anthony Adams in the comments down below. I want to thank you very much for tuning into this video, and as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.